Okay, these notes are naming and writing formulas for acids. Okay, acids will always, always, always have a formula that starts with hydrogen. So on the test coming up, if the formula starts with hydrogen, you know it's an acid, which means it's named a little bit different. Okay, so acids have their own nomenclature or their own way of naming things. There are two types of acids. You got your binary acids, which are hydrogen plus a nonmetal, and that's all it is. Hydrogen plus a nonmetal, nothing else involved. And then acids that contain a polyatomic ion. Each one is named slightly different. Binary acids have names that start with hydro. Okay, so, oops, gotta put it on the pen. With hydro. And end with ic acid. The IDE in the nonmetal is replaced with IC, acid. Okay, so let's look at one of them. Let's look at hydrochloric acid. Actually, let's look at HCl. HCl, if you notice, it's hydrogen plus this. Now this, when you're naming it, you would normally naming it by normal ionic rules, hydrogen chloride. Well, because it starts with hydrogen, it's an acid. So we're going to take out this IDE and put ic acid, making this hydrochloric acid. Okay, so this is hydrochloric acid, HCl. Pretty easy, right? Well, let's try some more. Okay, let's try HBr. Now, Br we know is bromide. So this is hydro. Now, I'm going to take off the IDE. So I'm going to erase that and put back in ic acid. So it's hydrobromic acid. Hi is hydroiodic acid. That would be iodine or iodide. You know, it would be hydrogen iodide. And the IDE is taken off. And then we have HF, which is hydrofluoric acid. Now, H3N is hydronitric acid. Now, we come to H2S. Now, you would think that it would be hydrosulfic acid. Doesn't sound right, does it? Well, chemists didn't think so either. So they're like, oh, well, let's just go ahead and keep the name sulfur and add the IC to the end of that. So this becomes hydrosulfuric acid. And then H3P, oops, that's a 3 by the way, they decided to do the same thing because hydrophosphoric acid didn't sound good either. So they're like, well, we'll take the US off the end of it and put the IC off of phosphorus. So it's now hydrophosphoric acid. Now, with these two, if you don't want to know the name, if you don't want to remember the naming rules, you must just write them down. I would just write them all down anyway, all the binaries, because that's it. You've got them all. There are only 7 binary acids, period. No more in the world. And we know H2O is not an acid because H2O, even though it starts with hydrogen, is water. Okay? And it's not ionically bonded anyway. It's covalently bonded. And we'll get into that when we start naming covalently bonded stuff. So right now, just know that these are the only 7 binary acids there are on the face of the planet. Now, acids with polyatomic ions follow a little different rules. Okay, these acids don't start with hydro. Okay, they just don't. So they're not going to be hydro something acid. They're just going to be, they're named after the polyatomic ion that they're made from. But the endings changed. So they either end in ic or us, depending on the polyatomic ion. In fact, here are the 2 rules, and then I'll show you how to apply them. If the polyatomic ion ends in ATE, for example, nitrate, then the acid name ends in ic acid. So if it's made with nitrate, this would be nitric acid. And I'll show you the formula for that in a second. If the polyatomic ion ends in ite, like nitrite, then the acid name ends in us acid. So this would be nitrous. So nitrous acid. See? So you just lop off that ate or the ite end of it. Okay, so let's do a few examples. Okay, so let's look at HNO3. Now, NO3 is nitrate. So this is where we take off the ATE and add the IC. So this is nitric acid. Okay, and then let's do HNO2. Now, NO2 is nitrite. So this is where we lop off the ITE, add the OUS for nitrous acid. Okay. Now there's a few others. Now there's three of them that are actually, let's just say they're oddballs. Okay, so you might want to write them on the back of your periodic table so that you remember them. And they are, first one would be H2SO4. Now that's made with sulfate. This is not sulfic acid. So the same rule kind of applies like in binaries. They didn't like the name of it. So instead of being sulfic acid, they named it sulfuric acid. Okay, so since it's made from sulfate, it still has the IC end. It just has the whole word sulfur in it. And the same with H2SO3. This is sulfurous acid. And there are actually two more. I'm only going to show you one more because the other one we don't use rarely. Well, actually, I can show you both. So H3PO4. Now that's phosphate. This is not phosphic acid. Just like with hydrophosphoric acid, this is just plain phosphoric acid. And then H3PO3 is the other one. And this is, whoops, guess it would help if I could spell. Phosphorus acid. Okay, so phosphoric acid and phosphorus acid. I would probably just write these down, unless you want to memorize them. Not that hard, really, but you know, if you don't want to, just write them down. Okay, writing formulas for acids. So basically, we're going to do the opposite of what we just did. Okay, so writing formulas is really easy. You just have to figure out what nonmetal or polyatomic ion is being used from the name. So if the name starts with hydro, then it's a binary acid. You know that it's one of those 7, because there are only 7. And it's H plus a nonmetal. Okay, let's look at hydrobromic acid. Now, of course, you could just look them up if you have all 7 listed, but let me teach you how to figure it out in case you forget your periodic table or forget to write it down. Hydro means it has an H in it. Okay, and H has a +1 charge. Bromic tells me it's from bromine because it used to be bromide. Bromide has a minus. Well, both the charges cancel, so you get HBr. Pretty easy, right? Okay, let's look at another one. Let's look at hydrosulfuric acid. Okay, so once again, the H tells me, or the hydro says it starts with an H, and it tells me it's a binary, so it's only made with hydrogen and one other element. Sulfuric acid, the sulfuric tells me it's sulfur, which has a -2 charge. Now, you can cross down if you want. That's the hard way. This actually tells you how many hydrogens there are. You could cross down or just, you know that there's 2 hydrogens, so it's H2S. Pretty easy, right? Because you're only crossing that number down anyway. Because hydrogen always has a 1. Okay? So, tells you just how many hydrogens. Okay, acids with polyatomic ions, it's a little harder. Okay? If the name does not start with hydro, then the acid is made from a polyatomic ion. So the first one we're going to look at is chloric acid. Okay, so I know that it does not start with, or since it doesn't start with hydro, it's not a binary. It has a polyatomic ion. The IC tells me that it comes from chlorate. So I'm going to find what chlorate is. Okay, so it's going to be H plus, and then chlorate is ClO3 minus. See? So you put that together, since they both have a 1, it's HClO3. Not that difficult, really. Okay, let's try hypochlorous acid. Once again, it doesn't start with hydro, it starts with hypo. But because it doesn't start with hydro, it's a polyatomic ion. So I got to find a polyatomic ion. So looking at the name, I'm going to figure out that it's hypochlorite. Okay? Because of this OUS tells me it ends in ITE. So I'm going to take off the OS and put in ITE. So it's hypochlorite, which is ClO with a minus charge. And of course my hydrogen has a plus charge. So this is HClO. Okay, let's do another one. Then we have, let's look at dichromic acid. Now, dichromous, I'm going to cross off the IC. I know that it's ATE. So dichromate. So I do know what dichromate is. You can look it up. It's Cr2O7 and has a -2 charge. Then I have my hydrogen. Now I know that this means that there are 2 hydrogens, so it's H2. And then I'm just going to write the C2, oops, Cr2, sorry, I can't write today. Cr2O7. So that's dichromic acid. So it's not that difficult once you figure out the little rules. Okay, well, we'll do a warm-up tomorrow, and then we'll do the last couple of problems, and then you guys will be given, well, you'll have to work on the study guide. We'll take the next day to work on the study guide, and then there's a test coming up. So I guess I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.